Alright guys, right next to me is a pair of Air Max 90 Classics in the OG infrared color. And I want to look at two of my most recent pickups. These are shoes that I just got in the last week. This one right here is from Nike.com, and this one over here is from Flight Club. And it took crazy persistence to get these shoes. Let's go here to the Nike pair. It's a pair of Lunar 90s, and they launched at 9 p.m. on Sunday night in between Black Friday and Cyber Monday. I happened to be on my computer when Nike released the link via Twitter for this pair of shoes, and I was looking at them and I was like, should I buy them? Should I buy them? And then they sold out and I didn't buy them. But I stayed on the screen and I kept refreshing and refreshing and refreshing. And every few minutes, the sizes would change. You gotta understand, these days, Nike is not just about launching amazing shoes, but they're also all about the hype. Let's see this card. It says, this holiday season, get them exactly what they want. So here's Nike, of course, promoting the sale of their shoes when I just bought a pair of shoes. But in addition to making really cool shoes, and wow, these are amazing, Nike is all about the hype. So they launched this shoe at 9 p.m. in limited quantities, but then the very next morning, they launched it again. They know exactly what they're doing. Nike's gonna launch a shoe, sell it out, launch it again, sell it out. They're turning us into like drug addicts, fiending for our crack on Twitter, and they give us a little and we're all over it, and then they take them away. But if you stay on the screen and you refresh, more sizes will come up sometimes. Now, this doesn't always happen with the really limited stuff, but if you're lucky enough to hit the Nike screen and you can see the sizes on there, if you don't see your size, wait a second, refresh it, because sometimes people don't check out, they don't pay for their items, and then they become available again. And in this case, they were really trying to generate hype because they only launched like half of them on Sunday night at 9, and the next day, on Monday, they launched more just before the crazy restock. Speaking of restocks, the Jordan 11 Bread was launched last Christmas, and then there was another restock a few months later. It's all about the hype. Nike could have sold all of those Bread 11s at Christmas and made people happy, but instead it's better for them to just sell some, hang on to the other ones and sell them again, and generate hype. So come on over here, let's have a look at this pair of shoes. They're the Lunar 90 edition of the infrared Air Max 90. Gosh, we've done so many videos this year on infrared Air Max 90s because there's so many different editions of them. And this is the most recent one, which is a hybrid of lunar technology. Check out the midsole on this. It's going to be made of that lunar lawn foam, which was inspired by a material used by NASA. And then it's got that beautiful Air Max visible air window that was on the infrared 90. For the most part, shoes with lunar lawn midsoles don't have visible air, but here you can see they've been able to infuse the visible air into the lunar lawn midsole. And then of course you've got this amazing tape pack, hyperfuse-like upper, very seamless, very breathable, beautiful shoe, great upgrades to the Classic, and you can see the two of them next to one another. They just are both amazing. Notice when you look here close at the box of the OG infrared from the history of Airpack, 80 bucks. $79.99 at Foot Locker. This pair right here was $130. $130. It's more than 50% up from what they were selling for in early 2006. The Air Max 90 is more popular than ever, and it's more expensive than ever. Let's have a look at the next pair of kicks that I got just last week, and it took the same kind of persistence to get this pair as to get this pair, only in a different way. So I'm on Flight Club and I'm checking out their new arrivals, and they got this pair of shoes. What this is right here is a 2003 edition of the infrared Air Max 90. And in 2003, it was actually the very first time that Nike used the colorway infrared on the Air Max 90. In 2002, a pair of these was retroed, but it says MX Orange. Max Orange was the shade of orange. And way back in 1990, the shade was High Vent Orange. So it really wasn't until this retro in 2003, check out the slender box right here, that Nike used the word infrared. So I'm on Flight Club, these shoes pop up, $125. I thought, wow, I really scored with this pair of kicks. The problem was they were conditional. And when Flight Club puts conditional shoes up for sale, they're not for sale on the website. So you have to go into the store. but these were in New York, and I'm all the way out here in California. So I start calling the New York store over and over and over again. 888-937-8020, over and over and over. I can't tell you how many times a conditional shoe will show up at Flight Club, and I gotta call them and get them to make the shoe available for me on the web. Sometimes they'll take pictures and show them to me, but usually I'm like, look, I don't even care the condition, just send it to me. So I'm calling New York, and they're not picking up the phone. Come over here and look at this beautiful pair of shoes. So they're not picking up the phone, and so what I decided to do is go into Flight Club LA. And I went to Flight Club LA, and I talked to my boy Chucky, who works at the store. And I said, Chucky, I'll give you $200 cash if you get this pair from New York for me. And then I didn't have to worry about it anymore. The shoes were $125 plus tax brings them to about $140, plus shipping puts them at $156. And I wanted to make it worth Chucky's while to get this pair of kicks. So I kicked in an extra 40 or so bucks. And guess what? Within an hour, Chucky was like, these shoes are on the way to LA. So they called me a week later, and I picked them up at the LA store. So this pair is the first pair to ever use the color infrared. And something else really cool about this shoe is the visible air window right here. It's actually the visible air window from the Air Classic BW. BW stands for Big Window. Remember back in the day in 1990, the Air Max 90 was called the Air Max 3. And the Classic BW came out the next year in 91, and it was the Air Max 4. So this pair of retros is actually the Air Max 3, but with the air window from the Air Max 4. There's also some subtle differences between this pair from 03 and the history of air ones that we looked at early on. And I'm going to grab this pair of kicks, and let's come on over here and check them out next to one another. The 03 has a mesh tongue, whereas the history of air does not. The history of air has infrared underneath the tongue, whereas the 03 just has gray. Very, very slight and subtle differences. The mesh is also slightly different. But you gotta love all these shoes. And one of my favorite exhibits in the ShoeZeum was the history of infrared Air Max 90s. I didn't have these two shoes in there because they weren't released at the time. But this is one of these shoes that Nike comes out with over and over. OG, tape pack, hyperfuse, it doesn't matter. I gotta get it and bring it together with its family. I hope you've enjoyed checking out these shoes, and I hope I've been able to help you out with a little bit of persistence on Nike.com and also on Flight Club when they get conditional kicks.